Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ricky again. Today we're going to do a little bit of story time bait review. Last week I told you I was going to go out and fish some of these jerk baits and figure out which ones were kind of worth the money. I went out fishing this morning or this afternoon for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and I only used 2 jerk baits, and then I tried the A-rig, didn't get anything on the A-rig, and then I switched over to this 6 Sense 106, I think it's the double D right here. Switched over to that, started fishing it, wasn't getting any bites, and then I was like, well, let me see like the action of it. So I kind of brought it into clear water, and visibility in this lake is probably about maybe like 4 feet. I fished it before, and then it's a buddy of mine little secret spot, so I didn't video any of it. But if you want to see the picture of the bass I caught, head on to my Instagram and check it out. I'll put a link in the description below. But then I switched over to, I didn't catch anything on the 6 Sense lure, so I switched over to this pointer, this Luckycraft pointer 90. And I have got to say, this is probably one of my favorite deep diving jerk baits now. Until I throw one of these mega bass. I didn't really throw the mega bass because I was fishing from the bank, and I kept pulling up a lot of stuff with the A-rig. So I didn't want to get snagged, lose a $25 lure, and that's it. So, first off, what I noticed about this bait is, well, let me go back. With the 6 Sense lure, with the 6 Sense jerk bait, I noticed that it was like slowly rising. On the package it says suspending at certain temperatures. The water temperature is probably right below 40. I was guessing because when I was holding this bass in the water, it was fairly freezing cold. My hands were really red afterwards. But yeah, I noticed it was rising, and I was like, well, I want something that's going to stay suspended. So I threw on this jerkbait, the pointer 90, and I cranked it to where I could see it, and I noticed that it kind of suspends like this. It suspends in that cold water really well, but it suspends nose down. And I don't know if that had anything to do with the bite or not. From what I've read and watched and everything, you know, the best ones you want are the ones that suspend straight like this. And I don't know if that mega bass does it yet or not. I haven't been able to look at it, but I noticed this one's suspended nose down, as far as I could see in the 4 feet of water. Maybe once it got down deeper and the water temperature kind of maybe warmed up a couple degrees or a degree, it may flatten out, or, you know, maybe it was just because it was so shallow. I don't know. But this is what caught me my fish. It was a 7-pounder. I think it was 21.25 inches long. First fish of 2018, and it's a 7-pounder. So hopefully that means good things to come this year, because last year it took me to November, December time frame to actually get a 20-plus incher in the kayak, off the bank, wherever. I had some that were on in the springtime and they came off right at the boat, but hopefully this means good things to come. But little story behind today. So I was out on the lake, and my buddy was supposed to, he said he was going to come fishing, had some stuff to do. So I was like, all right. Said he wasn't going to get out till later. And so I tried to stay out there as long as I could. And I kept walking around this little cove area. And finally I was just like, you know what? I'm about to switch to something else. So I switched to this. after throwing the A-Rig and the 6 cents 106. So I switched to this Luckycraft, and I cast out first, brought it back, nothing. Then I kind of shifted over a little bit to my left and cast where the water kind of drops off. It drops from about 4 or 5 feet down to 10 feet, you know, kind of rapidly. Creates like a little ledge. And so cast over there, and while I was casting, I was trying out different pause lengths. The first time I cast this out, I probably counted to 5, and I didn't get bit. The second time, I was going to jerk it and then pause every for 10 seconds, and so I twitched it twice. Waited 10 seconds, I twitched it again, and I was just sitting there. Now, 10 seconds it feels like a long time, but it's really not a long time. And I'm sitting there thinking in my head, what can I do to try and get a bite? So, while I'm sitting there, I feel just a bump of my, and I see my line go up. Wasn't expecting it at all. And I was like, I bumped it, my line went slack again. And I was like, maybe I hit a rock, because there's a bunch of rocks. So I was like, all right. So I kind of reeled it in tight. And as soon as I reeled it in tight, that line started moving a little bit. And when that line started moving, I just kind of swept that rod. And, man, he was going berserk. Well, he or she. It was pretty fat bass, so. But started swimming to my right, and I'm like, man, I got maybe a 2-3 pounder on, because the fish in that lake fight really hard. Even the small ones do. But as soon as I got him up to the water, I was like, man, I got a fish on. Saw it come up to the surface, splash, didn't jump. So as soon as it came up to the surface and it didn't jump, I knew that it was a decently sized bass. Pulled him all the way into shore, and I was like, man, I've got at least a 7.5 pound bass right here. All I had taken with me today was 2 rods and then this box of jerkbaits. No scale, no measuring board, no nothing. So I'm holding this bass, immediately try to call my buddy, doesn't answer, and then he texts me. He's like, hey, what'd you call for? I called him again. He's like, hey, what's up? And I'm sitting there holding this bass, shaking. I'm freezing cold still. And I was like, I've got a 7.5 pounder at least. I need a scale. I need something. So he gets all his stuff and he's on his way. Meanwhile, I'm holding this bass in the water with, just kind of alternating hands. It's freezing cold outside. And half the lake was pretty much frozen. But I had to alternate hands because I felt like my hands were going to go so numb while I was holding this fish in the water that the fish was just going to get away. At any second, this fish could have got away. But thank God it was, cold. The fish was, not very active at all because it was just, I could have probably let go and it probably would have sat there for a couple seconds. But I didn't want to take any chances. Finally, he shows up. We weigh it. It's about 7 pounds. And we put it on the measuring board. And it's only 21.25 inches. And we're looking at each other like this has, holding it, it looks like a 22-inch bass. But, that thing was about this big around. I could barely put my hand around the stomach. And he's sitting there telling me, he's like, that's the fattest bass I've ever seen come out of this lake. And I'm like, that's the fattest bass I've seen ever in person. Besides, pictures of Mario's 8-pounder that, ate like a 2-pound fish and had it sitting in its gut. But, the belly on that thing was so wide and it just kept pooping everywhere. It was just pushing out poop. But I've got to say, at the end of the day, this Pointer 190 is probably my favorite jerkbait, deep diving wise. Until I throw one of these megabass lures, just simply for the fact that it caught my first fish in 2018, and it was a 7-pounder. That's the biggest fish by far I've caught on any jerkbait. In the past videos that y'all seen, I usually catch, 1, maybe 2-pounders. Most of them are dinks, but oh, jeez Louise. But yeah, so I was pretty pumped, and when my buddy got there, he was pretty pumped to see that too. But hopefully we can get out this year. I got my other kayak sold, my wife's kayak sold, so for the time being, while it's snowing and raining and cold and windy, I might be fishing from the bank. I might put on the chest mount and fish from the bank sometimes, or work on story videos or reviews and stuff like that. I have something coming in the mail here in a couple days that I'm going to do an initial review on, or like an unboxing review, and then once I take it out on the water for a couple weeks, then I'll come back with a used product review of the thing I'm getting. So stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter account, and take a look at that bass. Let me know what you think of it, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.